The gross and the subtle sphere, according to Meher Baba. Hello, this is Chris from Wake Up, and today I want to talk about the gross and the subtle sphere. As explained by Meher Baba. Meher Baba is one of my all-time favorites, and his book God Speaks is pure genius. It's written from a very, very high perspective. And it explains better than any other book what kinds of different planes there are, different types of reality. The reality that we usually call reality is called the gross sphere or the physical sphere or plane. And the reality that most spiritual and holy people and sages and real gurus are talking about is called the subtle sphere. But the subtle sphere is not the last sphere. One of the students of Meher Baba, Reino Gailey, has painted a wonderful picture about what Meher Baba has explained, what he has seen, which is very similar to what Aurobindo describes, only a little bit more intelligible. Easier to understand, different words also. Meher Baba has taken Sufi mysticism and Indian, Hindu and Buddhist knowledge all together and explored it himself. And there are basically 4 different stages. The first one is the gross or the physical sphere, then the subtle sphere, then the mental sphere, and then the divine sphere. And beyond that, it even goes on. He calls it a beyond state of God and God in beyond state, and so on. It's, like I said in other videos, there are so many layers of this. But the most important to understand is the gross sphere and the subtle sphere. Because most things are happening on the subtle sphere first, and then they manifest on the physical sphere. This is also why materialists and idealists can never agree on anything. The idealists, they say it first happens on the subtle sphere, like also Plato and Socrates described it. And the materialists say there's only the gross sphere, there's only the physical sphere, there's no other reality, there's no other sphere. And if there is, you can't prove it, so we ignore it. Everything that is visible and perceivable by our usual 5 senses is the gross or the physical sphere, including our animal bodies. And the subtle sphere is overlapping with the gross sphere. So the first plane, there are 4 planes in the subtle sphere, and the first plane is the same than the gross sphere. They are overlapping. The first plane is existing in the gross sphere and in the subtle sphere. And the second and third plane, they are the most interesting, and the fourth plane then is the gate to the mental sphere. It exists in the mental and the subtle sphere. Okay. The planes of the subtle sphere, especially the second and third plane, they are where all the funny things happen. This is also where you can meet other beings in quotation marks, or think they're other beings, weird energies that you can channel and so on. All the cities happen there, astral beings and planes. Anything that is called supernatural, it's there. So you can get easily lost there. It's very, very interesting. And there's one ego trap after another. It's even worse than in the gross sphere. The gross sphere, you're mostly asleep. Once you're awake, you're on the other side. That's the gateless gate between the gross and the subtle sphere, but the first plane. Still the first plane, but you suddenly you can perceive the other side. It's not that you walk through the gateless gate, but you can perceive the other side. You can see the other side of the coin in the subtle sphere. And you can perceive all kinds of very interesting phenomena. And something happens with your senses. It's hard to say if it's still your eyes and ears which are seeing and hearing, but they are able to see and hear different things. One of you recently said that she can hear cosmic sounds. That's usually part of the subtle sphere. Can be of another, but it's usually a phenomenon of the subtle sphere. The same thing is people who say that they can see that reality, that gross reality is translucent, that it's all made of the same stuff and so on. It's all subtle sphere. And also what shamans do, talking to plants and animals and so on, subtle sphere. Also people who are talking to what they think are gods, all subtle sphere. And all cities, like traveling to another place, being in two places at the same time, I don't know, being able to eat or to drink anything, to heal, to walk on water and whatnot, yeah. Usual, some of these more incredulous feats often people who think they have these cities don't really have them. But there are reports of people who do have these cities, and I've also seen them, and I know people who have cities, and so on. It's not so difficult to develop these cities, but I recommend you not to develop them on purpose. They will come by themselves, and then you will see that it's better to use them as sparingly as possible. But it doesn't matter. The important thing here is don't get hung up about them. Don't identify with them. Once you have supernatural abilities, it's very tough to move on. You get stuck in the second or third plane of the subtle sphere. Where you really want to go is the mental sphere. The mental sphere is enlightenment. Asleep is the gross sphere. Awake and all the love stages are the subtle sphere. And enlightenment is the mental sphere. And after the mental sphere is what I call beyond enlightenment. It's where Yuji and Aurobindo and so were. The no self. It's merging with the divine, and then there's no more I left. One of the reasons why Meher Baba didn't speak. He refused to speak. He said everything has been said already and people don't listen anyway. He relied on his radiance, on his charisma, on his baraka, as the Sufis say. Pure love, pure universal love. And most religious, true gurus, they're also in the subtle sphere. That's why they can heal and bless and so on, and you can feel this love everyone is talking about. It's one of the stages of the subtle sphere. But it's not enlightenment. Enlightenment is to let go of all this. Just as you have to let go of the things that you have identified with in the gross sphere, at some point you have to let go and disidentify of all the things you thought were great in the subtle sphere. You don't have to do anything, of course, but if you want to move on, if you want to go the further route, always further, then no identification is helpful, no matter with what. So the two important aspects I wanted to focus on here is firstly that what happens in the gross sphere is of no great importance. It's the last link of a long, long chain. That is why it's also no point in trying to change something that is seemingly going wrong in the gross sphere. in the gross sphere with material and methods of the gross sphere. You cannot change anything in the gross sphere. You have to change it in the subtle sphere or the mental sphere. And that's what all great gurus tried to do, or even did. Who knows how much influence they had. A good example is the independence of India. This has been changed on the subtle sphere first and then on the physical sphere, or the outcome of the Second World War. It could have gone another way. So, also now if the shit hits the fan, it has already hit the fan, there's no point in trying to change it on the gross sphere. The gross sphere is just enacting the play that is being concocted on the subtle and mental sphere. So if you want to change what is happening right now, you better explore the subtle and the mental sphere. That's the big problem of green in spell dynamics, that they think they can change something here. Yeah, orange, blue, orange, green and yellow. They think they can change the gross sphere in the gross sphere. It's not possible. In Sri Aurobindo's book Savitri, all these spheres are explained. In the Life Divine as well, but mainly in Savitri, in the form of an epic poem. Same here with Meher Baba's God Speaks. But the experience, the validation, verification and so on is up to you. Talk is cheap. Anyone can say wise words. But can you walk your talk? That's the interesting part. So have fun exploring the subtle sphere and the second, third and fourth plane of existence. It's a hell of a trip and even more interesting and vast than the physical, the gross sphere, which is starting to become uncomfortable once again. And it's important to not take the superficial science too seriously, but to delve inside and to know yourself, to go in deeper and deeper within. Don't look without, look within. Follow your intuition and be brutally honest to yourself. Don't deceive yourself. Don't listen to arrogance, but go further and further and further. And then you can still decide if you want to change the game. Yeah, most games are in the gross sphere. The wealth game, the family game, the fame game, and so on. The power game. But the master game, the spiritual game, you can play in the subtle sphere. And if you don't want to play any games anymore, move on to the mental sphere. There will be a separate video about the mental sphere. Another way to explain the difference between the gross and the subtle sphere is the computer or cell phone you're watching this video on is comparable to the gross sphere. It's the hardware. You need the computer or the cell phone to watch this video. But the video is not on the cell phone or the computer, nor does the computer or the cell phone make this video. The computer or cell phone or TV or radio is receiving a program. It's running on software and it's receiving radio waves or microwaves so that you can watch what's on the internet. So the internet and the software is comparable to the subtle sphere. You cannot see the internet or you cannot see radio waves, but they are there and they make it possible for you to use your cell phone and to watch a movie or to watch a video. So it's ludicrous to say that there is no subtle sphere. There is a subtle sphere, just as there is an internet. And it's hard to explain how the internet works, or how software works, or how software and hardware communicate. But there is both. There's not just hardware. Same with your mind, your thoughts and emotions. They're not visible. They're part of the subtle sphere. Your body is visible, and your heart and your brain and so on, but that's it. They only are the hardware, just like your cell phone. And it cannot all be explained by chemistry and physics and electrical signals and so on. These are just the interface between the subtle and the gross. So I hope this was helpful to you. Write your comments below. There's more to say, of course, but for now that's it. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, joining me on Patreon, on Facebook, or subscribing. See you soon.